kind of the middle. We're filming the TBR of shame. That's what we're doing. Hello everyone, today we're going to be doing my October wrap up, and then the second part of this video will be my TBR picks for this month. Hopefully the TBR picks go a little better than last month. You'll find out why. So I'm going to go over all of the books that I read this month, what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them. Unfortunately, wasn't the best reading month for me. I didn't have any 5-star reads. One of them got really, really close. You'll see at the end. No 5-star reads for me this month, unfortunately. What can you do? Let me say there were a whole lot of 2 stars though. Let's just jump straight on into it. The first book that I read was the last book in the Zodiac Academy series, Restless Stars by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. Let me say, I enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars overall, but my god was I kind of happy to have the series end. There were 2 more books than there really needed to be. It really dragged out towards the end. The end book was so long. I can't even remember how many pages are there. I'm pretty sure I ended up skim reading a lot of it towards the end. I'm gonna put up here how many pages there actually were. It just dragged too much towards the end. I was over it by the end. Dog is coming to say hello. Hello, Maple. Hi, honey. She's just gonna sit there. So yeah, it was a good ending. I was really satisfied with the ending and how everything wrapped up and what happened. But I was glad to see it end. I haven't read any of the prequels or any of the other books that have come out like in this universe. Don't know when I will. I will eventually, just because the writing's so damn addictive. These authors just really know how to write a book. It's kind of like a reality TV show in a way, but I just haven't gotten around to the other books, honestly. I think I need some time away from that universe and then I will get back into it at a later date. The next book that I read was Lights Out by November Allen. I loved this one, guys. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and just because it was so funny. I'm kind of comparing it to a diet haunting Adeline, just because it's like that whole stalker romance thing. Also, this book has a trigger warning list miles long, so just like read the trigger warnings list before you get into it. But man, it was so funny. I was literally laughing out loud at a good deal of the book just because of how funny it was, especially because of how funny the male main character was. He was just so funny, and I've heard some clips of the audiobook on TikTok from him, and I really want to like reread the book but listen to it next time, because the voice actor that plays the main character just sounds so funny. I love the cat. Was the cat's name Fred or something? I don't know. That was just really funny. Yeah, I really liked it. It was really easy to read. Again, read the trigger warnings. Read the trigger warnings, but it was just fun. It was a really fun book and I liked it. The next book I read that I actually have the physical copy of. I kind of reorganized my bookshelves and now I don't know where anything is. I read The Butcher and the Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. Not everyone's gonna like me for this. I don't know, I think I just overhyped it too much in my head because I heard so many other people talk about it. Do you want to go outside? I don't know if it was just because it was so hyped up on TikTok and I heard so many people really, really love this book, but it just didn't hit as much for me. I still gave it a good rating. It was still, I rated it 3.5 stars. I think I'm gonna bump it down to 3.25. just because it wasn't very memorable for me. Personally, I honestly went in one ear out the other. It's a shorter book. Actually, 330 pages. That's not that short of a book, but I don't know. I feel like it should have been longer. I wish there was some more backstory to it. It just felt very surface level. I don't know why there wasn't a lot of reasoning for why the characters were the way that they are. Like, why was Sloane so flighty and like non-committal? Committal? Is that a word? There just wasn't a lot of backstory for any of the characters, and I didn't really understand the time jumps, like what was the reason for the time jumps, and the scenes didn't feel that shocking. Maybe I'm just too desensitized, but the ice cream scene that everyone goes along at, I laughed at. That was funny. That was actually quite funny, but everyone was like, oh, it's so disgusting, yada yada, and it's gross, but it's funny gross. Like, that's what I took it as. I took it as it was funny gross. But yeah, it was a book and it was entertaining somewhat. I just really would have loved some more backstory on this one, and I unfortunately didn't get it. And if I don't get backstory, I don't really connect with the characters as much. So yeah, that was Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. The next one next ones. It's gonna make people really mad. It's gonna make people really mad. Now, I am a dark romance girly. I love dark romance books. Like, for example, one of my favorite dark romance books up here by Sav R. Miller, her Monsters and Muses trilogy. Up there, literally one of my favorite. I've only got 2 of the physical books because they're expensive. One of my favorite dark romance series, but this one I couldn't get into. It's the Lord series by Chantal Tessier. All right, hold back your pitchforks, hold your tomatoes, don't throw them at me. It just wasn't for me, unfortunately. It just wasn't for me, and it wasn't because it was too dark. Like, again, I read a lot of messed up things, so like that sort of thing doesn't faze me. It just felt like it was just too shock horror value for the sake of it. It didn't add to the plot in any way, in my opinion. It didn't add to the depth of any characters. It didn't make it any more of a story. It was just these shocking scenes, and I was like, all right. And by the end of it, they got very repetitive. It was the same messed up guy chasing after some poor girl who just probably should have been shipped off to therapy. Everyone needed therapy. Everyone in this damn series needs to go to therapy. Get out of your cult, go to therapy. By the end of it, it got very repetitive. It was the same storyline over and over and over and over again, and you just wanted to strangle the female main character, go, just get out of this. Oh my God, you're not gonna make this man into a husband. It's just not gonna work. Yeah, I found it more annoying rather than me rooting for any of the characters. I didn't root for any of them. I'm like, you're all stupid. I don't like any of you. So for that reason, I actually gave the series 2.25 stars overall. It was going to be 2.5. I bumped it down because thinking about this series makes me mad again. Out of all of them, I think the first was my favorite, quote unquote, and even then I only gave it a 3-star. Star ratings, like reviews, aren't for authors. Like, I don't think authors should look at, like, for example, Goodreads ratings, because I'm not rating the author themselves specifically, I'm rating the book. It's like a made up thing. I would never want to hurt someone's feelings like that, but unfortunately this series just wasn't for me. And I know a lot of people love it, so not shitting on anyone that actually likes it. It just wasn't for me. And I probably wouldn't read any more of her work, as it just wasn't something that I vibed with necessarily. So there's that. Jack just scared the out of me. He's just standing at the window and my heart actually dropped out of my ass.
Can I help you?
So we've gotten to the point of the video and you're probably thinking, wow, Carly, there aren't any books from your TBR for October. Why aren't any of those books? You picked 5 books. I read one of them. I read one of the books on my TBR and it wasn't even in October. I read it before October. I finished it on like September 29th. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I love this book. I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4.75 stars. It was just below a 5-star for me. Just below a 5-star. Only because it was too damn long. This book is like 500 pages. That is too long for a romance. It didn't need to be that long. I feel like it could have cut some of the fluffier things out. But that's not to say that I didn't love it. I love this book so much. That is literally my only criticism about this book. The found family, I really related with the female main character with the like anxiety girly thing. I related. Yeah, it was really good found family. I really enjoyed this book and I actually can't wait to read the rest of the books in this series. And unfortunately, that's the only book that I read out of my physical TBR for October. So I have the other 3 books that I was meant to read in front of me. The 4th one is actually at work right now. I left it at work because I was like, oh, I'll bring it to work and then I'll read it at work. I didn't do that. I listened to a lot of it as an audiobook, and so that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I'll put a little picture here. Don't get me wrong, I love this book. I'm really enjoying it so far. I think I'm probably about a third of the way through it, maybe halfway. So far, I'm really loving it. The magic system is really cool and really interesting, and it takes a lot to be an interesting, newer magic system in a fantasy series these days. Fantasy or sci-fi? It takes a lot to have an original magic system in a book these days because everything's just been done. You can only have so many different magic systems and way worlds work and everything in fantasy/sci-fi series. It's all been done before. Somehow Brandon Sanderson gave us something new. which is just crazy. And it works, and it's really, really cool. It's really interesting. It's really captivating. Don't ask me why I haven't finished it yet. I think I've been in a reading slump. I think the Lord series put me into a reading slump, unfortunately. The other one that I'm about a third of the way into is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. Again, really, really liking this book. The mystery element to it seems really cool. I think I've just been in a reading slump. I just really haven't gotten into it that much. And the two that I didn't read, I didn't start Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy. I just haven't got to it. And then of course I'll be surprised I haven't gone into June. I think I'm gonna have to make reading this book its own video, just because I'm not smart enough for this book. This book is like my foe that I'm going to have to face in war one day. I just can't get this book into my brain. Little brain rejects this book. Those are all the books that I read in October. So a total of 8 books. 9 if you count things we never got over, but technically I read that 2 days before October started, but I'm gonna count it anyway. So 8 to 9 books. That's an okay reading month for me. I've had better reading months. Normally I'm more closer to the 10 to 15 mark, but that's okay. I'm just a bit slumpy this month. Not super into reading, but I want to change that for November. So I've decided to tack this onto my October wrap up. This is my November physical TBR. I'm gonna make it a little bit more realistic this month. I picked out 5 books last month. I think I'm gonna pick out 4. 1 less, maybe. We'll see if it actually works this time, but who knows. So I've got my trusty little TBR jar here. I don't think I'm going to put back the books that I didn't read back into the TBR jar, only because if I draw them right out again, I'm gonna get annoyed. So I'll put them back on my shelf. And then I think once I've done a few rounds of the TBR jar, then I'll put the books back into the jar, if that makes sense. I don't know. My TBR jar, my rules. We're going to choose our first book, the first out of 4 books. I'm gonna shake it up first. So I obviously forgot to take it. I obviously forgot that I wasn't gonna put the names back in there because I just fucking drew out June again. Absolutely not. You're not gonna get me to bloody read June. I'm not doing that. Alrighty, try again. Okay, first actual book that I'm going to read in the month of November. Ooh, There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. This is a gorgeous cover. I'm so excited to read this one. Like, look at those snakes. I've got a snake. I love snakes, they're cute. I read some other of Sophie Lark's books a while ago. I'd like to do a reread of them at some point because I've forgotten. I think, I read the Brutal Birthright series. I'd like to reread that series eventually. Oh, it's like a stalker romance. Cute, love that. Okay, that's our first book. I'm so excited. Second second pick from the TBR jar for the month of November. I don't know how I feel about that. It is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. So, November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Now, I have never read a full Colleen Hoover book. I think I have judged too quickly. So, I never read It Ends With Us. I saw the movie when it came out. It's too soon to jump on the hate train. Like, I don't hate her books or anything like that. How could I hate them? I haven't read them before. But yeah, I just heard other people saying about how like bad they are, and it's for people who like don't read real books on Book Talk and yada yada, which is just bullshit. But yeah, I think I was just too quick to judge this one. So I started reading Verity a hot minute ago, and then I never like finished it. I think I read like a chapter of it or something. So what's this one about? They continue to meet on the same date every year, until one day Fallon becomes unsure if Ben has been telling her the truth or fabricating a perfect reality for the sake of the ultimate plot twist. Okay, so it could be interesting. And it looks like a shorter book too. We've got 2 little skinny minis to start off with, so that's really not that bad. I am going to give this book a fair chance. I'm going to go in with no expectations and give it a fair chance like I would any other book, because it is stupid of me to have this preconceived idea on what a certain author's books are going to be like just because of what I heard from TikTok. And that's me maturing as a person. Anyway, It's not that deep. Let's choose the next book. So excited. So excited. Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I was just talking about how those other two books were so like skinny. Binding 13 is not. She's a chonker. She's a big girl. I know the girlies love this series. I know the girlies love this book, and I've heard so much about the series, so I'm so excited to read it. This book is 801 pages. So I'm of the opinion that a romance should be 300 to 400 pages max. What have you got to say in 800 pages that's that important? I'm really interested to see if this flows well, if it flows quickly, I know this book is quite emotional and there's a lot of trigger warnings in there, so I'm interested to see this long for a good reason. And our last book for my November TBR. Magnus Chase by Rick Riordan. So it's the first book in the series. Magnus Chase and the Sword of Summer by Rick Riordan. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I am the biggest fan of this author's work. I've got the Percy Jackson series. I've got the Heroes of Olympus series, which are two of my favorite book series of all time. I am a ride or die Percy Jackson girly. I love all things like Greek gods, Greek mythology. I love it. I think it's so interesting. And his writing is hilarious. It is like the perfect example of what YA writing should be. There's like a subplot of romance in the book, but it's not, because you know when you see a book on the shelf and it says that it's YA, it's like it's a book on a YA shelf and you're like, God, that book has actual smut in it. That's not for young people. This is YA book. This is YA book. This is an example of a YA book, of a young adult book. It is funny, it is age appropriate, but that's not to say that it's only for kids. Like, I'm 24 and I love this author's work. So what is this actually about? So this one's about like Norse gods of Asgard. God. I've watched the Avengers. How can I not pronounce that? The gods of Asgard are preparing for war. Apparently, if I can't find the sword my father lost 2,000 years ago, there will be doom. But first I'm going to die. This is the story of how my life goes downhill from there. Cute. All right. I'm so excited. So this is my TBR for this month. Can I stop looking away from the camera? Babe, it's not a real person. You can maintain eye contact. There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. And the first book in the Magnus Chase series, The Sword of Summer by Rick Riordan. That is a good TBR for this month. I'm really excited. I love how I started out with saying, oh, we've got two really small books. Maybe I'll only have small books this month. Yeah, no, we got two. Actually, the fourth one isn't that chunky, like 512, like that's a decent book. I'm nervous for this one. 800 pages, but like, oh well. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and hearing me yap on for like 20 minutes. I'm really hoping to have a better reading month this month. You can only cross your fingers and hope. November, it should be like a decently quiet-ish month for me, I'm hoping. I haven't got like too many things going on this month, so I'm hoping I've got some more time for reading. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.